Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next Line of Duty review.
Yeah, and just before we start, actually the usual want to give a shout out to Siddha Akil who's in the chat nice and early just before we so how was it cool and I hope you enjoy the content. And here come and here come the cavalry.
Yeah, I was going to say, as soon as you say that.
Now you get and oh okay, and you get the chat on legend you the comments is so yeah, as I'm sure it said to on episode but I now to be honest guys and we get into the review I've kinda got a question that I need to put that I need to put to the chat because I think I'm the actually kind of Austin this episode, but we'll get to so yeah, I have genuinely next thoughts on this episode as I enjoyed the performances, but there is a certain point in the episode where I felt it kind of went a bit over the mark. So, Charles, what are your general thoughts on episode 5 as a whole?
I think there's a lot of recap, and I think you sort of feel like it's almost like they're just making sure you know the main points before the finale next
Yeah,
episode. And there's a bit of characters, obviously, we know things as the audience, and the characters learn them this episode. And it's sort of this ramping and ramping and ramping tension until you get to that last 5-10 minutes, and then it's a proper explosion. I do think though this has probably got one of the best endings so far for an episode.
yeah, yeah, well, and yeah, well, even if you're not on, I'm not going to spoil anything, but Matthews and Catalyst and from the he's going to have to come up with some new material, to be honest, Charlotte, based on what happens in this episode, and um, has Charlotte actually for those guys in the end? Yeah, I think she's, um, yeah, I think she's also hold on and guys, and I'll just read to the chat, so and oh, it just says, um, I, ha- um, I have odds on this episode, but I can't put them in the chat. And yeah, of course, my half you the jokes over the it says Charlotte, which was the
No,
time.
what it was, my Kindle decided to restart,
Oh,
so I'm back.
so yeah, so yeah, as I was saying, Matthew's gonna have to get some material as his most of his homage is oh longer going to be in the series, but we'll get to that when we get. So yeah, so just to cover, you know, we finish off what you were saying. So, what were your thoughts on it? No, because you seem to be more a bit more acoustic, and the parts of the episode that I'm going to refer as we go on throughout the episode. The myself to put it mildly. So yeah, so overall, did you enjoy the episode?
Yeah, no, I think
Mhm.
overall, like you said, there's the performances from Dot again. So Craig
Yeah.
Parkinson. You've got Martin Compston, who I think's really got, obviously because of the situation Steve's in this episode. He's given a lot of really good scenes, and even Ted. I think
Yeah.
this is a really good episode for Ted and sort of Adrian and his acting.
Yeah.
And I do think, and obviously when we get to it, we'll go more into depth. But the sort of the reference that got you, I I honestly think
Yeah.
it was, yes, it's a little bit. It was done in a little bit of a wow, like you've suddenly gone there moment. But I think it stayed around for as long as it needed to, and then they moved on. And then, but we'll get more into that when we get there.
Yeah. So test the art is off, and I don't know what I getting you just had my after his comments getting you to be in a bit of an arsehole to and so perfect I mean. So yeah, so this the art is off with the obviously is art but now we don't actually start off this fancy what and because what he gets is an award for but but I can't remember I can't remember the name of the award
Yeah,
but
but it's for obviously
yeah.
what he's telling people he did to catch Harry. It's
Yeah,
that sort of story, and it's I think it's a
yeah.
bit of like a commendation as well, isn't it, chucked in?
Yeah,
So it's I think that's the sort of the being the hero and taking the sort of hit from Harry is the big part, but he's obviously been doing well in their eyes for other things as well. So it's like a load of things chucked together to give him this award.
yeah. Um, so he, so he get, so he obviously like, sees a want and Jill and says, have you ever, have you ever thought about a promotion?
Yeah, I think because he's a DI, isn't he? This is when it's me trying to
Yeah,
remember letters,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
DCI. She says like, have you never? Yeah, it's a very much a wink, wink, isn't it? Like, have you ever thought about it?
yeah,
Because Jill's also very interesting in this episode.
yeah, 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 very powerful way, it's for the case, and like, after you has put down onto that I can't
I was
pronounce
gonna
it
say, I had a
in
glance, and I was like, is that a reference I don't understand?
the chat. I can't pronounce that. I'm not even going. I'm not
See,
even going to try.
see. Usually I'd say, can you explain that? But with Matthew, at the back of my head, like, that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
We'll probably get in trouble.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, it's probably enough controversial. And it's always, but I do enjoy reading those comments. Half of them I can't read what they say on there. No, half you, to be honest. Ah, right, yeah. So, was
Oh,
up
yeah.
in the face, yeah.
I'm guessing maybe that was a character name then, that we both didn't get the reference to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's getting his big award. Also, Steve is like staring daggers at him throughout the whole thing, whereas everybody else is like smiling and being very happy for him. So that sort of sets off, or sort of sets the mood for how these two are going to interact this episode.
It's kind of like the old high school sort of rivalry.
Well, no, it's a bit more than that, but yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I think it's obviously Steve has seems to not see through his disguise, whilst he's basically at this point tricked everybody else, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So I think that's more of it with yeah. There's probably a bit of jealousy and a bit of rivalry there, but I think it's more that Steve didn't get bought in like everybody else.
Yeah.
So then now we go to Dot and Kate.
Yeah, and then speaking of being or unhooked or and sinker, to put it mild, he it's starting to get a bit too close to Orton, and it's kind of pulling at fire.
Well, yeah, it's like you can see from Dot's and he's trying to flirt, he's trying to get a relationship with her. And Kate is sort of sometimes seems to be quite receptive to it, and other times she doesn't. But it's like it is interesting because basically Dot is saying, I need you on my side. I need you to cover my back."
See, I can't, I do get in with them and oh, actually, just before they go any further, yeah, I mean, he's in a state of working. She's very happy and hypocritical um, as we've said, the past, review. So, yeah, so yeah, I suppose it's still a bit the inch, so yeah, that will I can buttons and one to the find to those even did it us and
Oh,
to be
he's
honest,
this is the cleverness of him. He's not lying what he's saying about Steve, but he's twisting it very much to make him look like the bad guy. So he sort of says to her, he keeps ordering these forensics just to catch me out. Which it's true, he is ordering these tests because Dot's not doing them. So Steve's not doing an action you can understand from his viewpoint, which looks suspicious, but Dot is very good at twisting all his actions. And
yep.
that's exactly what he's doing with Kate in this moment.
Oh God, Mark, you, that's so quite cheesy. Oh,
Now we know
uh,
your pickup lines, Matthew, at least.
yep. So yeah, so then we go to Eve's hiring out um hiring out a fire or like signing it out. It could go goes to the airport apartment to like sign out a firearm to like go to and to like attend to and attending all students and the middle because they think that there could be perceived in if you know.
Yeah, and it's quite just that scene in itself is quite sad because Steve's the only one there, and it sort of just highlight how alone he was, and that he really
Yeah,
did his life because of the Sans view place. You can
yeah,
see how much that affected him, that he couldn't have relationships almost afterwards of any description, whether it's friendships or significant other or anything. So
yeah,
it's quite a little. It's a little touch, but I found that quite well done, well in the scene that you could just got the sense, and you could see that in also Steve was sort of quite remorseful, considering like talk about how those were at the beginning of the
yeah,
series. Those were like constantly have like two bulls sort of knocking horns, weren't they? But Steve's the one that's like the only mourner at his funeral.
yeah, and of course you can't, and of course you can't go up this Asian carrying of and carrying the flight of a island to Orton the and surprised that he's carrying about the and carrying about the on
But he does sign it back in, which is
yeah,
important for what Dot tries to pull later on. He does sign the gun back in.
uh,
But yeah, you're right.
on
He's literally
yeah,
just come out just had the funeral, hasn't he? So he's just in the office and he's just not put it back yet.
yeah,
But yeah, Dot spies that, and you can see as soon as he sees Steve with it, he's like, this can add to my plan basically at this point.
yeah,
Because then he goes, yeah, that's what I meant to Daku. It's not said, and it's a very simple scene, but it does convey a lot, which is what I sort of quite like about that scene.
yeah,
But yeah, so Dot then goes to jail, which is what I meant by her being quite interesting this episode.
yeah, and can so he goes to jail and he basically and it basically acts on it tells Joe that it's been carrying about a firearm in the office so she um so she is like um um oh my god with the current for on his and so now you are getting an amnesty as a preliminary
Well, yeah, that's
action almost.
we've got a few other scenes before that, but also another
Yeah,
thing Dot adds, and this is what I mean by him. He technically
yeah,
doesn't lie, but he just adds
yeah,
and twists things. He does also say to her he
yeah,
has raised this with Ted, which he hasn't, and basically it
yeah.
got ignored. Oh, I didn't actually Wendyology. That's a good spot.
I
Which is
can't
another
actually.
thing for which is also Dot once again using
Yeah,
Steve's sort of blissful mistakes against him. But first we get we check back in with Fairbanks.
yeah. Oh yeah, because because they go down to one of the boys and parents' house.
Yeah, and this is one of the
Yeah,
few times somebody actually, like a parent, did go to the police once they heard from the child basically the experiences they had there.
yeah.
And the mum
So
has quite a few interesting things to say.
yeah. So again, so again, she came back. She came back right acts up and joke. was Joe's and uh, Joe's story um, about 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 Angela Watch.
Yeah, so she says, I went to the police. I
Yeah,
told them basically what my boy told me, and she got just told, we like, no, there's nothing to this. Like, we don't. Oh yes, they do. But that comes up later, doesn't it, as well, Matthew? So we can sort
yeah,
of. But yeah, basically also it in this trunk, Steve is basically following Danny on CCTV about like the route and what he was carrying when he was dumping the head.
yeah,
But no, this is interesting because like I said, it backs up Joe's account and it just adds more suspicion on Fairbanks that she said, I went to the police. She was basically shut down. But then when she said, I'm going to go take this further, I'm not going to let you just sort of tell me to be quiet, then somebody
but
came
then
round.
so the and the bank sort of sweeps it under the carpet and doesn't follow it up.
Well, that's
So
the inference, isn't it? Because she says an
yeah,
officer came round and said that an inspector was going to deal with this and that the offender had been charged.
mhm,
And then they were like, "Could you tell us the name of the inspector?" And she says Fairbanks.
yeah,
So he's really starting to look suspicious now, isn't he?
and yeah,
That he's not just this dithering, like forgetful old man that got portrayed last episode. You're starting to see, no, there's something nasty here.
he's such a creative bastard. And I'm sorry for my language here, guys, but people people is it all like he is a creative bastard.
Well, that's the thing with the actor. He, like I said, he plays that sort of bumbling, forgetful old man
Yeah,
really well. So when you do start to see little hints in the interview later on about what he's actually like,
yeah,
it's quite telling because it's a complete personality shift.
yeah,
But we'll get to that obviously because that's the interview later. But also Ted has a very usual what's become normal now is a very shouty, angry meeting with Steve.
yeah. It's kind of like a father, it's kind of like a father disappearing and then son and son and this.
Well,
And
yeah, it's sort of they're both shouting at each other at one point, but because Steve's like, "Oh, I've got this lead now on Fairbanks. I want us to chase it,"
yeah,
and like Ted is hesitant to do it. And
yeah.
Steve at first is like, "Oh, you're doing this because of your Mason link. You don't want us to investigate." And then Hastings just comes out and says, "I can't have you interviewing him. I'll do the interview. It just can't be you."
Actually, that's kind of an interesting point. I never really got that. I never really got that impression when, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting now that you bring that up. So, yeah,
See,
like,
but we sort of saw
yeah,
this last series that
yeah,
sometimes rank and friendship will make him do things
yeah,
he doesn't want to do.
yeah.
With obviously the chief inspector, what was he? What rank was he last series?
The chief and, like, the chief and, like, yeah, but I can he ran the ice, but he was the same rank as what does Uranus and
Oh no,
to
I'm
get
thinking about the actor who you really like last series,
oh 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 who you,
Mark Bonner. Is it Mark Barnett?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He was a deputy chief constable. Oh
Yeah, and you could
yeah.
see like they were saying to him, "Oh, we've got to get him in. We've got to investigate." And Ted was reluctant then,
Yeah.
but you do get the sense there's a bit more than just rank with Fairbanks. There's some personal link there that's making him a bit hesitant. But he's basically saying it to Steve, you've got too many suspicions around you. You're too hot, to sort of use a term that sometimes you hear in these police shows.
Yeah.
And you can, and as usual, Steve's reaction isn't good to that.
Yeah. So last thing he kind of was on the Instagram. He's instantly brother ends up the whole and he brother ends up the whole nations and again and it can any brother ends up the fact about the unredacted about the unredacted to file about about owning about owning Murphy and Hunt have been um I don't want to say the word because YouTube won't actually like it when I say it, but you know what
Links
I'm
to
doing.
abuse, let's put it that
I
way.
I yeah.
And you can see Ted is genuinely surprised here.
Mhm.
So I think the sort of the theme for the last couple of episodes of is Ted sort of a part of this. I think by
Yeah.
his reaction, you can see he didn't have a clue about this file and how much information was redacted.
Uh, yeah.
So I think this sort of makes any suspicions of him become a little bit less sort of
Yeah.
powerful now for this stuff.
Mhm.
You can tell there's something with Fairbanks, but he's not part of the more bigger picture that it was hinted at maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, so next it is Steve having a meeting because of his behaviour.
Yeah. Uh, so, so it's essentially, so it's essentially now, like, being called into the pit and being called into the head teachers office and all to get, um, to basically get, to basically get actions put on the essential one. Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously there's the suspicion about the planted money from
Yeah.
the Denton case.
Mhm.
It's this bringing up of this firearm,
Yeah.
carrying it, and obviously
Yeah.
the caddy link that Dot invented, or he made the profile to fit Steve last episode. So
Yeah.
it's sort of a whole barrage of things against Steve, which means he
And
basically gets suspended.
yeah. Uh, but but uh, but yeah. But before that, he asks for Orton to be and being them takes well in and takes well in I he's getting um and takes well in I he's getting and and a hot basically
Well, yeah,
and
because to begin with, they basically say, "Oh, a colleague has raised concerns," and Steve's like, "I
yeah.
know it's Dot. Bringing him in,
Mhm.
he needs to be here."
Yeah.
So that once again, that the fact that Dot can't seem to trick Steve at
Yeah.
all. He seems to just everything he does seems to Steve seems to see through pretty quickly.
I can kind of tell that you were holding a few times to the head, but was
Not a
always
surprise,
like,
Matthew. We love you, but it's not a surprise.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but then obviously when Dot comes back and hi Chris. When
yeah, I
Dot
walked off.
Dot basically says, well, this, and this, doesn't he?
Mhm.
Just lists off everything he's suspicious about, and you
Yeah,
can see just gradually Steve is just losing it at this point.
and yeah, but like, see, um, but like, see, I'm not sure if the whole crying thing suits Steve, to be honest, because he's meant to be the sort of confident, sort of cocky, sort of
Yeah, but I
like
think what's
confident
getting him
person.
is because it's Ted, because it's Kate,
Yeah,
because it's a team he's actually starting to get comfortable with now. He's starting to see as almost friends and family at this point.
yeah,
I think if it because look at he doesn't cry when Doc talks to him. He
yeah,
gets angry. You can see him ready. He almost looks like he wants to thump him, and you
yeah,
can just see that anger. It's when Dot leaves the room and Jill, and he's just facing Ted.
yeah,
That's when the tears start because you can
yeah,
see he's genuinely upset that Ted is believing this
yeah,
because he sort of says Ted sort of does that whole like he said it's almost like a father saying I'm disappointed in you, son,
yeah,
and Steve says I'm disappointed in you, and you can really feel that. So I think if this was anybody else, he would be cocky, but because it's Ted,
mhm,
it's hitting a lot harder.
yeah,
And like you've got to, and also you can tell Steve loves his job. He loves being a policeman and sort of fighting the bad guys.
mhm, yeah,
So this is also he's losing his job, which you can tell that's one of the few things he absolutely adores.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and
Wendy. I think it is. He sees it as a betrayal.
yeah, and to be honest, I don't think when oh, she's a fan. It doesn't want to be honest at all.
I
I
think
am
Wendy's in my team where you just feel so sorry for Steve this episode.
yes, and yes, we know you fancy him. Why don't you stop coming?
No,
That's
that's
better.
that's what you do to Freema.
I can hear.
I don't call him my husband, do I? You call your little list your wives.
I can neither confirm or deny that.
I told you I'd get you back.
Yeah,
Yeah, but Steve does bring up the forensics, doesn't he, to Dot,
yeah,
and that also gets brushed aside. And I think you can just see he's so
yeah,
just like, come on, there's something off with this guy as well. A
yeah,
bit of that is in here. That he's
yeah,
so there's something off, guys. Why are you being bought in? That's the vibe I also get from Steve when he's angry anyway. Before the tears come,
yeah.
and he sort of and like I said, what we were saying when we started this series. This is why in any sane world, Martin would be number 14 because he can do these scenes.
Oh Jesus, the dark one don't already know it. Yeah,
So now we go back to Dot in the scene which
yeah.
you thought he was cringe before with Kate.
Oh yeah, and he's kind of been so. I mean, he goes, I'm sorry that you had to see that, and he's been kind of creepy and so. I mean, I don't know if his arm around us.
Oh yeah, and this is also when he starts to sort of drip feed to Kate. Oh, I've got a link or
Yeah,
evidence that he did plant the money to
Yeah.
sort of just add more to that he can't have any of them feeling sorry for Steve or having past loyalties to Steve. He's completely trying to now almost blacken that.
And so essential is so essential is he's suspended as a result of that. As a result of us.
Yeah, but he does the, like you said, he does the creepy sort of, oh, I'm sorry it's had to come to this, when he's the one who's orchestrated it. But there's a scene when he goes round to her house.
Oh yeah, but the whole the careful and really tries to sing or get on, but like she kinda breaks it off, and then she's like, oh, but let's take this so, and it's like, oh my god, just stupid, but actually, who's up there? He's such a dodgy and terrible person.
Yeah, no, with the flowers, he basically, it's just a little scene, but he's there with the flowers, and it's sort of, you can see he's very much going for a kiss. So
Yeah.
you can see he's not fully got Kate on side. What he wants anyway. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
still a little bit of resistance there.
Yeah.
But then Kate has another scene which is interesting, back to the whole
Oh,
Mason.
oh yeah, because she goes to one of the other anti-corruption engines now, and there's a specific reason, there's a specific reason as to why she chose this victim. I saw officer, uh, and like because that's officers and because that's officers email, and if you know anything about the and if you know and if you know that it's in pieces about the nation, oh, sure you'll know that the emails can't be nations, so that's what I should picks as a officer.
Yeah, and she sort of says that I want to do an undercover on another team member without
Yeah,
saying who it is. And before she's even had to say a lot more, she sort of this inspector goes, "Oh, it's
yeah.
because I'm female, isn't it? And I can't be a Mason." So it's
And
Ted. You know she's starting. So that shows she still has a bit of trust in Steve, because Steve was the one who told her about the Mason Lincoln hat, how he wasn't trusting Ted.
I, I think Paula did it because I knew.
That's actually quite good though.
Yeah,
That rhymes and everything.
I said something like funny. Yeah,
See, you've got a creative player, Matthew. We never knew about this.
yeah.
You're showing a different side.
Oh Jesus! I can imagine the types of William Judo and Valentine's Day. He can't.
Yeah, so we're back to Steve, and this is probably, I remember watching this the first time, and it was
Yeah,
hinted that this was going to happen, but
yeah.
I think it still surprises you what Steve's next move is now.
Oh yeah, because now he's out at all options. The only option he is got is to sort of form an alliance with Matthews, but pal.
Yeah, and I think Keeley and
yeah,
Martin have a really good chemistry, and you see it in this scene because it's
yeah,
just it's electric at times. This scene
yeah,
because Denton's enjoying the moment a lot.
yeah,
She's finally got Steve basically down on his luck,
yeah,
desperate enough that he's had to go running to her, and she's like a
yeah,
cat that got the cream, isn't she,
yeah,
Denton? And you
yeah,
could see she even makes him sit there for an hour before she turns up just to see how desperate he is. Like that's the sort of
yeah,
level of messed up that she's been about this.
yeah.
But he does open with an apology though, and this comes across to me as genuine. I don't think he's trying to play her here.
Yeah.
And he sort of says,
Uh,
he apologizes, which is the word which is interesting. I keep saying that word today. I've noticed that he says, "I took advantage of your emotional state,"
yeah,
but he doesn't say anything else. So he's still not fully saying he took basically intimate advantage of her. It was just you were grieving because of your mother, and I used that because I wanted results.
yeah, and yeah, and she's like on, and she's like on so I'll get myself at this it,
Yeah, she's basically saying I wasn't interested in you. It was just it was probably on Denton's end. Just she knew she would use this later on as leverage. So now she's fully throwing it.
oh god.
I'm really gonna look in the chat now.
oh god.
Matthew, I need him to function for streams. You're stopping my co-host from functioning because he's just gonna giggle now for 10 minutes.
I mean, yeah, they can get them. They can tell somebody to direct
Oh no, see, you're breaking my co-host.
yeah.
And I think what else? And so basically, you can see there's a very uneasy alliance agreed by the end of this,
Yeah.
and that oh no, I love the line actually she says where she's like, oh, I can't think of the exact line now, but when she's like, look at the level you've been brought to now, and that's what I had to live through.
And because she holds all the cards now, to be honest, and I think so. And I think Charlotte me. It doesn't Charlotte you're on me.
And I know parents are shouting downstairs. I thought best to mute while that was happening. It's fine. I did that on purpose, folks, so you didn't hear.
Alright,
The-
okay. Just checking.
I know, trust me. I know with tech. I've already had my Kindle reset on myself this stream, so it's fine. So now we go back to Fairbanks.
Yeah. And because your bank's kind of all done for a problem. But like I said, like I get the impression it's a Owen brand.
For all intensive purposes, on the surface, it is because they haven't got enough to arrest him yet.
Yeah,
I think this is them, and we've seen this happen before. They'll have somebody come in as a voluntary interview
yeah,
to basically help with the hope that they trip up, that they say something in the interview, which would lead
yeah,
them to more evidence. And I think that's what they're doing with Fairbanks here.
yeah,
So because we do like the beginning of it, Sadaka. It's a miracle I do streams. I'm not kidding you. a miracle ID streams with what my tech's like.
Oh Jesus, the church! Oh Jesus, the church is in against Wolverines tonight. So,
Well, no, they're not rebelling. They're talking the truth. My tech is just hates me half my life.
Yeah.
So to begin with, it's a lot the same information, isn't it, with the Fairbanks stuff? They're sort of just going over stuff that they've already questioned him about. But
Yeah.
you do get
Yeah,
near
because
the end.
yeah, because there's a whole situation about the social about the social worker gets brought back up again, and and basically on his officer us on his officers is kind of spirit to prove it with a suicide.
Yeah, well, he basically they talk to some of the ex team, don't they, that work that case.
Yeah.
And one of the, and from the impression, it's probably a lower rank officer says, we got told by Thurwell that whatever the evidence is, it's going to be a suicide.
Yeah.
So it, like that hint once again of like hushing stuff up, keeping stuff like out of public view, trying to hide things is being brought up again, and it's the link back to obviously it's like, well, why would he be saying that? Like it's a very suspicious thing for a high rank officer to say. And once again, we get the usual response to Fairbank of, oh, it was a lot of years ago, I don't remember it.
Yeah, because he's trying to make out he's got anxious so that he gets off. I think you see, so he tries to be very cool. Over.
Yeah, so that is a new bit of information, obviously, because they've had to go to this person to find out that there seems very much hush hush.
And
But
here come and
there's a quick little thing before obviously the scene that we're going to be talking about. Also, there was no records of this so-called investigation that the mum got told about.
yeah.
So it's another massive red flag that you and because Fairbanks said he investigated, and it's like, well, if he investigated, how come there's no records? So it's like almost this ghosting completely of this investigation at this point.
Yeah, because he's kind of sweet under the carpet.
Yeah, and there's one tiny bit, like I said, you have to really pay attention because it's not like big flashy moments with this interview. That Fairbank also refused to be part of a photo lineup.
Yeah.
Which is another massive red flag, which is like, oh, you don't want to like put yourself for like a E-fit sort of photo lineup was the impression I got.
See, here's the thing. I didn't see sort of questioning about that in the first.
Well, I don't know if this is new information or not. This is it's a little bit hard to sort of gauge sometimes in this scene what's new and what's just been brought up now, but they already knew about it. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, and I'll let Daniel now talk about this first.
Right, here goes. Right, you get shown, and you get shown a series of images. It's a couple of images. The first one is just watching watching nearby the charity for auction, but then but then there's an error here, and each for them of and for them of years or and like it was watching your bank again, and like, and you get a reference to the most evil past that humanity has ever um has it um has ever seen basically. And to be honest, and to be honest, we kinda already know what if I actually adding that bit into what this story is. Have to be you didn't have to be that close to the bone, and it kinda did take me out of the episode a bit. So I'll put it to the chat. I'll put it to the chat just now, so that we get a general consensus. How did you guys feel about that? How did you guys feel about that scene? Because it kind of took me out there episode or, or a bit. So did you guys? How did you guys feel, about it?
Yeah, well, Daniel's put in your guys' comments. I'll sort of add my bit to this,
Yeah,
which is I forgot this reference was in this episode until
yeah,
Daniel literally messaged me after he watched it, and I had to because it's it is a bit blink and you miss it, but then it is referenced again with them being a bit more. They never say the individual's name, and we don't want to either. But they do obviously sort of even Fairbanks says, "Oh, we all know who that is," and then
yeah,
Ted later on does a bit more of a yes. He even talks about it being a clapped out DJ. So they're basically they're getting as close as they can without referencing the name.
yeah,
And I do think, like Daniel said, there was enough obvious links to the real life that you could tell was the inspiration, or if it wasn't the inspiration, you can see that it was a big public story, like which it should have been. So I would not be surprised if they weren't at least a little bit taking real life for this whole storyline about corruption and power and sort of how people in high places can hide some of the most depraved acts. And that's
yeah,
what that individual sort of store it's not story like his actions highlight sort of brought to the surface, which a lot of people weren't aware of.
yeah,
So I do think that it was enough of, like I said, there was enough in the story that referenced to real life that they didn't have to literally bring that picture in because
and yeah, that didn't sit right with me.
but
To
I
be honest,
do think, and this is not me defending it because also this is the BBC and people who know anything to do with that individual know that the BBC were part of the cover up, or
yeah,
they protected at least this
yeah,
individual.
mm-hmm,
So it comes across very what word? I'm trying to think of the right word here. That a BBC that's produced for the sorry that a program produced for the BBC is having the
very sort
reference in it.
very sort of
Yeah,
awesome.
it came across as crass, but at least it was just one picture and like I said, one more line of dialogue.
Yeah,
I think if they would have, they'd at least, I think they knew that they couldn't have it be a big presence because it would have ruined the whole episode for a lot of people.
yeah,
So at least it was a little, at least it was minimal. But I do agree it shouldn't have been there as a reference.
yeah, yeah. It just doesn't sit right with me. Right, so where are we in the episode? Because I don't want to tell everyone this bit, but
Oh,
well,
Steve's
oh,
being watched by Kate and Dot.
yeah,
So Steve is now under surveillance.
yeah,
Just to add to the fact that he's sort of out on a limb here in this whole scenario now.
yeah. So Kate Cotton and Kate Cotton observed that of trying to retrace Aldrin's anals. It,
Yeah, because that Steve is sort of he's now keyed back into Waldron, hasn't he?
yeah,
And he's sort of I think he's also thinking, well, Denton's very good at having like
yeah,
multiple backup plans. So he's almost like saying to her, like, what? Well, no, she even says it like, this is what I would do. She says, doesn't she? Like, if it was me, I wouldn't. I would have a backup copy. I would
yeah,
save it somewhere. Like she gives him all these things that turn out to be true. So he's sort of following this lead, and then you see Kate and Dot in the car
yeah,
watching, and Dot once again he's using every opportunity here, saying, look, he's with her. Like, and
yeah,
it's sort of like again, it's Steve doing actions which he's not clicking yet, and making him look even more guilty,
yeah,
even though he's not. It's just like the fact that he's picked to work with her makes Kate go like, God, like he is this sort of bent individual you're trying to tell me almost at this point.
yeah,
But obviously, in typical Denton fashion, you can't trust her as far as you can throw her
yeah. Uh,
because
uh,
she clips a lead and decides to send Steve on a completely different one.
oh yeah, because and because in and look up and then look up a real eh, and then look up a real of stuff in the area and
Well,
like
yeah, well, they're looking, and she points him
yeah,
towards the graveyard.
yeah,
And it's the way it's shot, it's not said, but then she sees an internet calf, doesn't she?
yeah,
And if you know Denton, you know, oh, that's where she actually thinks it is because she's told Steve this graveyard.
yeah,
Because there's another interesting. Oh no, well, there's, and then we go back to Jill for a moment with Ted.
yeah, because Hastings Hastings confronts Jack about the unlimited to find basically it's hard that Fred after the unlimited I
Yeah, because also she's not happy that he's interviewed Fairbanks because
yeah,
before, sorry, like I said there was a lot of scenes at the beginning, but I didn't write them all down. She basically said, "Oh, I'll sort this out. Like, and I'll deal with
yeah,
this." Ted, didn't she? And so he's gone forward
yeah,
without her knowledge and interviewed Fairbanks, and you can
yeah,
see that's riled her up. And then Ted does sort of say he's sort of seen, and he even like says, "Well, this is the sorry." There's a lot. I'm trying to just go through all the things he does say because he has a proper almost rant again. Ted, he's
yeah,
a bit ranty this episode, and he sort of says like the people protecting people like Hunter, like
yeah,
this Roach character, and the real life example. They all get it's all coming from politicians or sort of something higher up, and
yeah,
he's sort of saying, I don't care. I'm gonna almost crack this. I'm gonna find out who's protecting these people.
yeah.
And then Jill has a very sort of snide response back, doesn't she?
Yeah, and she brings up about Hastings being in relations and stuff.
Yes, because she wants basically the case being taken off him, doesn't she?
Yeah,
And she uses that link to say, like, public image, it's not going to look good.
Yeah.
But then she also has a bit of a very sort of devious little line of, well, I thought responsible adults could deal with this nicely. And she's basically saying, because you denied my advances, she's hinting here that this is why you're doing this.
Yeah.
So she's using that now against him.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see sort of the how deep, how sort of below the belt she can go now.
Yeah.
She's sort of been done a job a lot on the surface, but now you're starting to see her little tendencies to come out.
I mean, she's a right now. Episode. I feel, oh my god.
To be fair, that it could have been a lot worse for Matthew considering recording.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, you do make a good point.
He doesn't need help, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So then we do go back to Steve and Denton for a minute, because you see the girlfriend's response to seeing Lindsay there, Denton. Sam, who's already shown she's starting to sort of drift away from Steve and doesn't believe him about not doing anything with Denton.
And yeah, but his girlfriend himself, I can tell. Edible pair and edible pair.
See, in other scenes I would agree with you, but I think I can understand her response in this, because if you got home and you saw your boyfriend with the woman he's accused of having improper relations with, and she's just sort of casually sat there. This is one of the few times, because usually I'm with you with the girlfriend, she comes across incredibly judgmental and harsh. But I think this is one of the few times I can go, I know, I can buy her reaction in this moment. No, she technically smiled when we first saw her, Wendy, when Steve was late for the date and she was in like a nice dress. She did smile then, but beyond that, no. But the reason why I brought this scene up is because Denton uses basically the argument Steve and his girlfriend are having as an opportunity to take something, which comes up later. Once again, like another thing of, oh, it comes up later. So she takes his notebook, his sort of clean notebook, which you can guess has got information in, but we don't quite know yet why she's taken it.
So that kind of, so that kind of modern economics and even a sense.
Yeah, because it looks a bit weird. It's like, why has she got your notebook? But obviously, we know as the audience she is taking it. Because then now we have, I think, something that Kate has probably been wanting to do, which is have a proper sort of confrontation with Steve. Because he's like an idiot in this graveyard.
Because he's trying to, okay, he's trying to, okay, and he's trying to, okay, that's.
Yeah, and he's sort of he's not, at least she's not literally got him digging, but he's searching around this graveyard, isn't this sort of gravestone that she's basically pointed him towards when they were looking at records. And Kate basically just sort of says she's making you out to be a mug, like you just sort of fall in her line, which is funny because what we've been saying about her with Dot for the whole episode, but she's sort of saying to Steve, like, you sort of dug your own grave, like, maybe that the imagery is quite apt here. She sort of is saying to him, "You're digging your own grave by partnering with her, and she's not on your side. She's led you up the garden path, hasn't she?"
Yeah, and yeah, and then he said, I of you you a partner, I shall get what's coming. And at this point, he's beginning to annoy me again. I don't know, and I don't know what it is, but it's character so with this annoys me.
I think more. Like I said, I watching this again, I got the same vibes because
Yeah,
there's no. I think it's because Steve, even when she was at her lowest, or what we've seen at her lowest, with obviously the cheating or sort of like the affair we saw last series, like Steve had
yeah,
no ounce of judgment in his voice, and he was very there, was the first one for like there for her, and did a lot for
yeah,
her. So I think almost seeing her be this quick to attack him.
yeah,
Yes, Steve has done some stupid things. We're not denying this, but
yeah,
I think it's because Steve was shown last series to completely be there for her, and
yeah,
she's sort of one of the ones digging the knife in almost
yeah,
now. And it just, like
yeah,
I said, like I said, it's been when I first binged all this, it was way before we started doing the streams. But almost
yeah,
watching in them now again, I can
yeah,
understand why Kate comes across as unlikable almost at this point.
yeah,
Like, just I think
mhm,
that's why Steve is almost acting a bit erratic now, because like the
yeah,
people he thought he could rely on
yeah,
have all just turned on him completely almost at this point.
yeah, mhm,
So, but while Kate's dealing with Steve, Dot is keeping an eye on Lindsay, isn't he?
yeah, yeah, because he's keeping an eye on what Lindsay's up because he then goes back to the internet cafe to try and get into old Jaren's email account.
Yeah. So she's clicked
Yeah,
that this internet cafe would be useful,
mhm,
and she sort of has the
yeah,
pictures, isn't she? And is like, "Oh, it
yeah,
says, was he here?" And the woman confirms it and sort of points it towards
yeah,
which computer.
yeah,
And then this is why we see she needed
yeah,
that notebook, because she basically Steve like would have been off routine, got a load of passwords
yeah,
and
positive,
information,
yeah,
so she needed that to basically crack the email.
yeah.
So she eventually gets there, and what does she find, Daniel?
Oh yeah, she finds a job after the altering to the sort of look at the hard copy before before they on so it's a gi- so it's a giraffe copy that he never that he never sent because on he did insurance. Oh um oh this is some oh so oh and he as she receives the giraffe and it's over uh, her email account so that she is the only person that So that she's the person that it's what the everything to the list.
which she thinks is going to protect her.
Yeah,
And this is you're seeing how clever she was to work out where the list was. But what happens next? You sort of see what always seems to happen with Denton, which is she she overestimates something, or she doesn't quite sort of factor something in. Let's put it that way.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and unfortunately for her, you see Orton roll down the and going R, and she thinks it's Steve,
Because
and she's like,
it is Steve's car.
yeah,
He just changed the plates.
yeah,
So obviously she gets in and it's like, oh, take me to AC-12.
yeah,
And by like a couple of minutes in, she does blurt out what she's got, doesn't she? Because Dot
yeah,
sort of gets it out of her.
yeah,
So, like I said, I've got like, this is my title, right? Dot follows Denton, and then about 6 or 7 bullet points because a lot of things happen now.
yeah,
Yeah, it's fine. So, sort of, at first he's like playing it cool, like, yeah, I'll take you to AC-12, isn't he? But as soon
yeah,
as he clicks, she's got this copy of this list.
yeah,
Then the caddy, as Matthew sort of hinted at, starts to show itself.
yeah, yeah, because you get because anybody ends up with the whole uh, together and to leave again because it says it says well you it's not for to get on to break because you wanted to um because you wanted to find a young adult and he says oh it's going and 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 then he says, "What's it going to be? This I'm 100 rand, and then he kill exit. He's the kid. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, because at this point you see he just wants her gone, doesn't he? He's like, just take the money and
yeah,
run, basically. I think that's not the exact line, but he basically says, just take the money, you stupid. I won't say the
yeah,
word.
yeah. Take the money, you stupid. That's
There you go,
Lady Glass.
Daniel, for you. And
Yeah,
I think this is such an interesting moment for Denton because we know all her flaws, we know all the sort of the nastiness and the bad parts, but you almost see her morals now. I don't know if that's the right word. That she says no, I'm not going to take your money.
yeah. But um, you get because I'm a because she says that she's a pope. And she's a and she says that she's a soft soft and so any project on her.
And she, in response, basically starts to type in the email address of Hastings, and he's like, "I'm
Oh
going to send this," is she's saying to him.
yeah,
And then they end up near the end of the drive being like that's like a what they're called,
I
big
know
containers. What's it called? Having a memory blank.
what. Oh my god.
The chat will probably tell us in a second. But
Oh,
it's not deserted, but it's quite a quiet sort of place with crates, the big old steel crates, Can't think for the life of me what they're called.
yeah. Shipping containers.
Yeah, shipping containers. That's it. And Denton, and you've got to give her props. Like, she's literally got a gun to her head, and she's almost doing the equivalent by holding the list out and saying, "I'm going to send it. I'm going to send it." And she's taunting him. She's literally taunting Cotton, and he's sort of saying, "You got all these people killed, but you ordered those kills. You never physically did anything dirty. And if you shoot me, you're gonna have to, for once, have blood on your hands." And it's a brilliant bit of acting from Keeley here.
Yeah.
And also, obviously, from Craig, because you can see he's absolutely bricking it. Like, he's never had to shoot somebody like this.
Yeah.
And you can sort of she's shouting, he's shouting, and you sort of on the edge of your seat, aren't you? Sort of going like, who's gonna pull the trigger, or what's gonna happen with Denton?
Yeah. And she basically says you're a weasel, and then she says, if you want to shoot me, go ahead. See what AC L says, and then and she sends the email and the us over she to everyone, and he just and he just shoots her right in the skull, and you just see all the bill. What? Bill. All over the car. It's cool. I get it.
And obviously, this is now the end of Denton, sort of a big character for the last two series. And I think this is probably when, obviously, I didn't watch it first transmission, but I think this is when the fan base probably got that vibe of, even if you're a big character in this show, even if you've got big billing, you can be killed off. And I think, obviously, with maybe Danny was a bit of that for people, but Denton has been such a big presence. So she's now been taken off the board.
Yeah.
So it sort of really makes the stakes of the show feel real, I think, Denton's murder like this.
And so obviously the episode ends with what new Isis, I'm in this right now. She's sent an email, so he pisses off out the R and changes the dates on it, and that's the end of the episode.
And like I said, I think this is probably one of my favourite endings of the whole run. And because it's just, and it's such a simple scene. Like, it's just these two in a car. Like, there's no flashes. It's not like a car chase. It's nothing big action. But it's just so well directed and written and acted.
Chat, that is your episode. So, what I would do, like for you to do right now, I was to write down your scores, write down your scores for the episode in the chat, and I'll fire them up on screen. So,
yes. Well, we obviously say what our scores are.
Okay, in the meantime, Charles, what are you giving this episode?
Like I said, I think a bit of it is a bit recappy, but I think they needed to do that. But it does. There's little bits of this that feel a little bit slow, like not really badly, but almost, like I said, it's a bit of recap for stuff we've already know.
Yeah.
But I just, and that ending though is just, I think it's, like I said, it's perfect. I couldn't think, and that's the thing. I think if Denton was going to go out of this show, it was going to be a really dramatic moment. She wouldn't just be allowed to sort of go off and have a happy life in the sunset. So I think it's very fitting that this is the way she does go, and that sort of that moment of, for all her faults, like I said, she had a lot of integrity when it mattered, this character, and I think that shines through here, and the sort of bravery, like I said, it's not that she was like talking back to him when he had the gun. She literally put her face closer to it to almost psych him out, and it's just, like I said, those two actors. So, but then I understand the Savile thing, and with the slow bits, I'll probably give this an 8. Like I said, knocking maybe 1 point off for the Savile reference, but it wasn't as much of a big thing for me like it was for you, and maybe 1 for the slight repeating of information. So I'll give this an 8.
I will give it an 8 as well. Like, if the Savile thing wasn't actually in the episode, and this would have been a lot higher than that. It was just the fact that it did kind of take me out, and it's out of the episode, and it's such a shame because the acting on this Ian the character well, and is off the chart, but unfortunately that kind of put a dampener on things for me. So yeah, 8 out of 10 from me, and I'll get it to the chart. And I'll get to the chart now, guys. So to start us off, and it just gives it um arcs, and so the article gives it a 9 out of 10. Kevin S gives it a 9 as well, and I think we're about to make history in the channel. Matthew gives it arcs. I think that's the first time.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time he's ever actually gave an episode arcs before, so a bit of history in the channel, to be honest.
Yeah, and another reason why I'll add this quick, I probably didn't give it 10, is I know what the next episode's like, and that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Yep, I mean, spoiler. I mean, spoiler well, Ian Shaw, I already know what the next episode is of, but they won't spoil it for you guys in the chat.
And let's Ducky, what's the world coming to? Hey, it's not all bad. This is proof, guys. It's not all horribleness and negativity in the world.
Well, it kinda is so when it comes to the SM show, because it only gets more sinister and more dark if you really think about it. I'm surprised that this is actually the type of show you go for, so like, you're quite a positive, upbeat sort of cinema. Repair. I'm not going to mess with you now, to be honest.
Well, you think it's giving me too many ideas, this show?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, no more.
Well,
Yes, no
Dante's
more.
gone, Matthew, so your little muse for them has gone.
Uh,
Say that though. There's plenty of female characters coming up. That's all I'll say. So maybe one of them will become your new muse.
oh God, I can go. I can go. Yeah, and thanks very much to cover us for popping in as well.
Yes,
Ellen,
thank you,
and then there's your
Master Wrench, as we now refer to you as.
yeah. Right. So because it's episode bus action, we'll be back on Tuesday to the end of um um season on E.
Because
So
somebody has. Oh, I still can't point. I won't try. Somebody has football match
yeah,
on a Saturday. So
yep,
that's why we're doing it on a
one,
Tuesday.
yep, and um, and I heard that handsome guy, yes, he's got a football. Oh, and yeah, but yeah, so make sure you tune in for that. Just of the morning, guys. With episode episode X is an hour and a half and more. Is an hour and a half long, so it's a bit longer than your average episode. So guys, make sure to smash the shit out the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. To share this or even whatever platform you are um, on whatever platform you are on, and yeah, and make sure when you hit the bell to and get all the pieces of content on this channel so that you'll be notified. And yeah, and make sure and yeah, and make sure you're all subscribed to the this channel because YouTube are
But
constantly
no, but think
up.
about it this way. It means
Yeah,
we've made it enough that even a little channel that only has about 200 and something odd subs,
yeah,
YouTube knows enough to take away subs. Think about it that way.
yeah, yeah,
We're not on the radar, even though we're tiny, tiny, tiny little like speck in comparison to everybody else. That we're deemed important enough to have subs taken off us.
yeah. So yeah, guys, all that needs to be said is thank you for joining us, everybody in the chat. This channel, this channel is nothing without all of you guys supporting us, and we'll see you the same time on Tuesday evening as we're under season but before we I'll get Charlotte to I'll get Charlotte to I'll get Charlotte to shout out our channel appearances.
Yeah, so tomorrow I should be doing Classic Who. So if you want, we're still on the first Doctor. So if you like good old Bill, we'll be. I don't know which one. I need to check in the morning which one we're on. And then on Sundays, if you're suffering along with us for Doctor Who Flux, join us after the episode airs obviously that depends how long, but it's after the episode on Sunday night for the panel on the TARDIS Zone, so both TARDIS Zone at the weekend. And I'm a regular now on Type 40, both the live show and I'm reviewing Flux with Dan and a few others. So if you want to hear us lot all and some different voices than the TARDIS Zone talk about those episodes, listen out for those on the Spacebook.
And Asimov, it's typical. His channel favorite like Arkinson is actually starring in Corvus Lane this upcoming episode, so he still have somebody that's actually like good and I'll Charlotte in this episode.
Yeah, let's just hope he gets good writing because it is Chris Chibnall. But so, like I said, TARDIS Zone and the Spacebook and wherever else I pop up, because sometimes people are crazy enough to invite me on streams.
Yeah, and as I've said, Tuesday night, maybe, still, season 3, so see you. So see you. And 7 p.m. start on Tuesday. So yeah, so all that remains to be said is have a great weekend, guys. Again, cheers for the support. Me and Charles he'll appreciate it, and here's this exist and trail, and here's this exist you on
Good night, everybody.